The cameras may be silent. The cast may be scattered across Hollywood. Production timelines may still feel uncertain. But somehow, years after the last full season aired, fans of Euphoria still refuse to let go. And now, one tiny but emotionally explosive detail buried beneath months of rumors, delays, scheduling chaos, and internet speculation has reignited one massive question across social media. Is HBO quietly preparing the final chapter of one of television's most controversial modern dramas, or is the series slowly disappearing in plain sight? Because right now, Euphoria exists in a strange and uncomfortable place few blockbuster television franchises ever survive. It is neither officially gone nor fully alive. It remains suspended in a kind of entertainment industry purgatory, trapped between corporate silence, creative uncertainty, audience obsession, and the enormous pressure that comes with following a cultural phenomenon that reshaped teen television forever. And for millions of viewers across America, that uncertainty has become part of the story itself. For months now, online conversations surrounding the future of Euphoria have intensified. Fans dissect cast interviews frame by frame. Entertainment reporters analyze every scheduling update. Reddit threads spiral into emotional debates about whether the show can even continue after years of production delays, behind-the-scenes rumors, and heartbreaking real-world tragedy. Every small update instantly becomes headline news. Every cryptic comment sparks another wave of speculation. And perhaps most telling of all, audiences still care enough to argue passionately about what the future should look like. That alone says something profound about the cultural impact of this series. Because Euphoria was never just another teen drama. From the moment it premiered on HBO, the series exploded into something far larger than television executives likely anticipated. It became a lightning rod for conversations about addiction, trauma, mental health, sexuality, identity, social media culture, and the emotional instability of modern adolescence. It launched fashion trends. It dominated TikTok edits. It created internet celebrities overnight. It turned makeup aesthetics into global movements. It transformed young cast members into A-list stars almost instantly. And at the center of it all stood Zendaya, whose portrayal of Rue Bennett became one of the defining television performances of her generation. But now, years removed from the explosive highs of Season 2, the conversation surrounding Euphoria feels dramatically different. The excitement has been replaced by anxiety. The anticipation has become uncertainty. And fans are beginning to wonder whether the very thing that made the show such a sensation may also be what makes continuing it so difficult. Because the truth is, almost everything about Euphoria changed after Season 2. The entertainment industry itself changed. Streaming economics changed. HBO leadership changed. Audience expectations changed. And perhaps most importantly, the lives and careers of the cast changed in ways nobody could have fully predicted when the show first debuted. Back then, many of the actors were still emerging talents trying to establish themselves in Hollywood. Today, they are some of the busiest young stars in the entire industry. Sydney Sweeney has become a major box office draw and one of the most recognizable faces in entertainment. Jacob Elordi transformed into a global film star with critically acclaimed performances and major franchise opportunities. Hunter Schafer expanded into blockbuster cinema and fashion influence. Alexa Demai became an online style icon whose mystique only deepened with time. And Zendaya herself evolved into arguably one of the most powerful young performers in Hollywood, balancing prestige projects, billion-dollar franchises, fashion campaigns, and award-winning performances simultaneously. That level of success creates opportunity. But it also creates logistical chaos. Coordinating schedules for a cast this massive and this in demand is no longer a simple television production challenge. It has become an industry-level puzzle. Every delay compounds the next delay. Every postponed shoot creates new conflicts. Every actor commitment elsewhere potentially pushes Euphoria further into uncertainty. And fans know it. That awareness has fueled a growing fear online that the longer HBO waits, the harder it becomes to realistically reunite the show in its original form. Some viewers worry the emotional momentum has already faded. Others argue that the long break might actually benefit the series creatively, allowing characters to return older, more mature, and transformed by time itself. But then came the tiny detail that changed the tone of the conversation completely. Not a trailer. Not an official release date. Not a major press conference. Just a subtle indication, one small creative clue, that suggested HBO may not be emotionally ready to close the door on Euphoria after all. And that clue spread across fan communities like wildfire. Because according to ongoing industry discussions and cast-related observations, many fans became convinced that the emotional core of Euphoria still remains unfinished. More specifically, audiences began focusing intensely on unresolved character arcs, particularly the complicated emotional journeys involving Rue, Jules, Cassie, Nate, and Lexi. The realization hit fans hard. Despite all the chaos surrounding production, the story itself still feels incomplete. That emotional incompletion may sound insignificant from the outside, but in fandom culture, it changes everything. Television audiences can accept endings. What they struggle to accept are unresolved emotional narratives. And many viewers believe Euphoria never truly reached emotional closure after Season 2. And controversy was always part of the Euphoria phenomenon. Critics praised the show's visual artistry while simultaneously questioning its graphic content. Some hailed it as brutally honest storytelling about modern adolescence. Others accused it of glamorizing destructive behavior. Parents worried about its influence. Younger audiences defended its emotional realism passionately. Every season became a cultural battleground about art, morality, youth culture, and media responsibility. That tension helped make the show unavoidable. Even people who never watched Euphoria often knew about Euphoria. That kind of cultural saturation is incredibly rare, but it also creates impossible expectations for any future season. How do you follow a show that became bigger than television itself? How do you create another season capable of satisfying audiences who have spent years building expectations in their minds? And perhaps most importantly, how do you continue a story after real life has altered the emotional reality surrounding the series? Because no conversation about the future of Euphoria can avoid the heartbreaking loss of Angus Cloud, whose portrayal of Fezco became one of the show's most beloved performances. Cloud's death devastated fans and cast members alike. His presence on the series carried a quiet, emotional authenticity that grounded much of the show's chaos. Fezco represented compassion inside a world often defined by emotional destruction. His relationship with Lexi became one of the few genuinely tender storylines audiences could emotionally hold onto amid the darkness. After his passing, many fans openly questioned whether Euphoria could ever feel the same again. And perhaps that question sits at the center of HBO's dilemma. Continuing the series risks disappointing audiences if the emotional chemistry cannot be recreated. Ending the series quietly risks alienating one of the most passionate fan communities television has seen in years. So HBO appears trapped between two difficult realities. Move forward imperfectly, or stop completely and leave the story unfinished forever. Meanwhile, the cast themselves have often spoken carefully when discussing the future publicly. Interviews tend to sound hopeful but cautious. Nobody appears eager to officially declare the show dead, but nobody seems fully ready to guarantee exactly what comes next either. That ambiguity has only fueled further obsession online. Fans analyze wording obsessively. When Zendaya discusses Rue with emotional attachment, fans interpret it as hope. When cast members mention scheduling complications, fans hear warning signs. When HBO executives reference development progress without firm dates, viewers alternate between optimism and frustration. The silence itself became part of the marketing machine, even if unintentionally. And perhaps that is why the smallest details now carry enormous emotional weight. A single cast photo, a vague production rumor, an offhand interview comment. A subtle acknowledgement that these characters still matter emotionally to the people who created them. For audiences emotionally invested in Euphoria, those details become evidence that the story is not finished yet. Social media has amplified this emotional investment into something almost unprecedented. Fan edits continue generating millions of views years after the latest season aired. TikTok trends recycle iconic scenes constantly. Makeup aesthetics inspired by the show remain culturally recognizable. Quotes from the series continue circulating online. Younger viewers still discover the show for the first time through streaming, keeping its relevance alive long after typical television hype cycles fade. That continued engagement matters enormously in the streaming era. In traditional television, long delays often killed momentum completely. But streaming culture functions differently. Shows can remain culturally alive indefinitely if audiences continue rediscovering them digitally. Euphoria exists permanently online, endlessly clipped, remixed, debated, criticized, celebrated, and emotionally revisited by viewers around the world. That digital afterlife gives HBO a unique opportunity few shows receive. Even after years of uncertainty, the appetite still exists. But appetite alone does not solve the deeper creative challenges. Because another difficult reality now hangs over any future season, the cast no longer looks like high school students. Time changes perception. A long production gap forces creative reinvention. Reports have suggested possible time jumps precisely because continuing directly from previous timelines may no longer feel believable visually or emotionally. And honestly, many fans seem open to that evolution. In fact, some viewers now argue that aging the characters forward could strengthen the series dramatically. Imagine Rue confronting adulthood instead of adolescence. Imagine Cassie facing the long-term consequences of emotional instability. Imagine Nate navigating toxic masculinity beyond high school environments. Imagine Jules searching for identity outside teenage chaos. That version of Euphoria could potentially evolve alongside its audience rather than trying to recreate the exact energy of earlier seasons. But it would also fundamentally change the show. And change always creates risk. Especially for a series built so heavily around atmosphere, youth culture, emotional immediacy, and visual intensity. There is also the question of whether audiences themselves have changed since Season 2 aired. The cultural conversation surrounding television shifted significantly over recent years. Viewers increasingly debate issues of exploitation, mental health representation, shock value, and trauma-centered storytelling more critically than before. Some critics wonder whether Euphoria would be received differently if launched today. Because if HBO finally moves forward with Season 4, or what many suspect could become the show's final chapter, expectations will be astronomical. Fans will demand emotional payoff. Critics will demand artistic evolution. Executives will demand ratings success. And the cast themselves may want deeper meaning after years of personal and professional growth. That combination creates enormous pressure on every creative decision. Still, despite all the uncertainty, one truth remains impossible to ignore. People are still talking about Euphoria. Constantly. Passionately. Emotionally. And in modern entertainment, attention is everything. Many television shows disappear the moment they stop airing. Euphoria did the opposite. Its absence became part of its mythology. The longer it stayed away, the larger the speculation grew. The uncertainty transformed into suspense. Will it return? Can it return? Should it return? Those questions now dominate entertainment conversations surrounding the franchise. Even media coverage reflects this strange emotional duality. Headlines alternate between optimism and doubt almost weekly. One report suggests progress. Another emphasizes delays. One insider claims development continues. Another questions whether schedules will ever align. The result is a fandom trapped in permanent anticipation. And anticipation, psychologically, can sometimes become stronger than payoff itself. That may be the most fascinating part of the entire Euphoria situation. The show no longer exists solely as a television series. It exists as an unresolved emotional event. Fans continue replaying old scenes because they still feel emotionally unfinished. Discussions remain active because viewers still crave answers. Online communities persist because the characters continue occupying emotional space in people's lives. Very few shows achieve that level of lingering psychological presence, especially years after airing. Which brings us back to that tiny detail, keeping hope alive. Not a contract, not a trailer, not a confirmed premiere date, but the undeniable emotional reality that audiences still are not ready to say goodbye. And maybe HBO knows that too. Because in an entertainment landscape overflowing with disposable content, truly unforgettable shows are rare. Controversial shows are common. Viral shows happen constantly. But emotionally defining shows, the kind audiences emotionally attach themselves to for years, those are different. Euphoria became one of those shows. Messy, polarizing, visually overwhelming, emotionally exhausting, deeply controversial, but unforgettable. And perhaps that is exactly why the conversation refuses to die. The future of Euphoria may still remain uncertain. Production realities may continue complicating development. Creative challenges may still loom large. No official path forward may feel simple or guaranteed. But emotionally, for millions of fans across America and beyond, the story still feels unfinished. And until that feeling disappears, Euphoria will remain alive in the only place that truly matters for modern television survival. Public obsession. The deeper this uncertainty stretches into the future, the more the story surrounding Euphoria begins to resemble the emotional themes that made the show famous in the first place. Anxiety, isolation, emotional limbo, uncertainty about the future, fear of abandonment, desperate hope mixed with painful realism. In a strange way, the audience experience of waiting for Season 4 now mirrors the emotional instability the series itself explored on screen. And that irony has not been lost on fans. Across social media, conversations about the show have evolved far beyond simple entertainment updates. People are no longer just asking when the next season will arrive. They are debating whether modern television itself is capable of sustaining something as emotionally ambitious, visually expensive, and culturally volatile as Euphoria in today's entertainment economy. Because behind the scenes, Hollywood has changed dramatically since the series first became a phenomenon. When Euphoria exploded into mainstream culture, the streaming wars were operating at full intensity. Major entertainment companies were spending enormous amounts of money chasing prestige television, cultural relevance, awards recognition, and subscriber growth simultaneously. Networks and streaming platforms wanted event television, the kind of shows that dominate conversation online and create fear of missing out across younger audiences. Euphoria delivered exactly that. But now the industry looks very different. Studios are cutting budgets. Streaming platforms face mounting pressure to become profitable. Executives increasingly prioritize sustainability over artistic risk. Expensive productions with long development timelines no longer receive automatic support simply because they generate cultural buzz. And Euphoria is not a simple show to produce.